Welcome to the DadCast Podcast. I'm your host, Lavelle Lemonnier. Now, as a Christian man, a husband, father, grandfather, business owner, professor, and proud U.S. Army veteran, I've gained some unique perspectives on life's issues. So as a result of that, this podcast is designed to give a dad's perspective on everything from A to Z. I'd like to give a big thank you to our sponsors, WriteItOut.tech, where you can get all of your academic writing needs met, and by Lemonnier Photography, where we see the world through a different lens. Let me also give a great big shout out and special thanks to my lovely wife, Dr. Gabrielle Lemonnier, who is the co-creator and co-content manager of this broadcast. DadCast Nation, what's good, everybody? What's cracking? What's popping? We've got another great show for you today. Before we dive in on this topic today, let me give you a quick bit of financial news. Let me throw this little disclaimer out. As always, I'm not an investment broker or a financial consultant. I'm just a dad who follows the market and has a background in accounting, finance, and economics. So these tips are purely speculative. In an Investing Outlook article this week, world-respected finance PhD expert Dr. Steve Sluggard said this: "This is an event that will go down in financial history. Fortunes will be made and lost, and it all comes down to knowing what's coming and positioning yourself before 2020 comes to an end." So what is the big this that he's referring to? Well, he and many other analysts predict that the uncertainty of the election's outcome and the possibility of legal action after the election may have a significant negative impact on the financial market. So much so that it could cause a financial shutdown. Now, I'm not a doom and gloom fan, nor do I subscribe to the conspiracy theories that are out there. But what I do know is that I work extremely hard for my money, like many of you do, and I want to protect my assets at all costs. So my tip for you this week is to be smart, be safe, and most of all, be informed. Now for our inspirational thought of the day, I'm going to borrow this line from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who actually took this line from Mahatma Gandhi, which says, "You may never know what results come of your actions, but if you do nothing, there will be no results." Another great American lyricist by the name of Bob Marley once said, "Get up, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up, don't give up the fight." Folks, we're in a time in human history when it is paramount that we each stand for something so that we don't fall for anything. And now, get ready, hold on tight, hold on to your seats, folks. It's time for the dad joke of the day. A husband and wife had been arguing all day. They passed a herd of jackasses. The wife says, "Relatives of yours?" The husband says, "Yep, in-laws." All right, folks. It's a dad joke, funny to some, not so much to others. All right, today we've got a very interesting topic. And this title, the title to this episode is Shut Up and Dribble, and I'm calling it the Election Edition. We're going to discuss sports and politics, and we may throw a little entertainment value in there as well. To help me dissect this big topic today, I've got two amazing men in the studio with me. The first one is Mr. Curtis Brown. He is a native of Port Arthur, Texas. And I remember watching this young man while he was in high school playing sports, and now as a dad and a husband and a good community leader, he's doing a good job out there in Fresno, I think he tells me, and doing a good job being. I like the fact that he is a girl dad. I know he has one daughter that's in college right now, and she's doing extremely well. And so I want to welcome to the show Mr. Curtis Brown.
Thank you.
And then our other guest that we have in the studio with us today is Mr. Calvin Menifee. Mr. Menifee is a man that I met last year sometime. And we've struck up a bit of a friendship over time, and found out recently, I knew he was a big guy, but I didn't know that he was an Oklahoma State University 4-year starter. Mm-hmm. What sport were you in?
Football.
He was a football
player.
Offensive lineman. So, folks, you can imagine, there's no little guys in the studio today. But hey, we're glad to have Mr. Menifee with us. Mr. Menifee and Mr. Brown. I'm going to call them Curtis and Calvin for those that are listening. But they're going to help me look at this topic that we have. And I want to kick things off here just a minute. Let me cue up something, folks, for you to listen to. If you will recall, back 2 years ago, there was a Fox News analyst or reporter, Laura Ingraham, I think was her name, and she basically told LeBron James to just shut up and dribble. And I want to play a clip of that so we can get the context of what she was saying, and we're going to use that to segue into our discussion.
We're going to create a new banner. This is a Jump Doc alert. NBA superstar LeBron James is talking politics again.
I know you guys are excited to see her. I didn't know you guys were excited to see me too, but thank you. As much as you guys would love to hear from me, I would much rather love to hear from our next president, Ms. Hillary Clinton.
Now, a historic moment. We can now project the winner of the presidential race. CNN projects Donald Trump wins the presidency.
And this time it's R-rated. Here's his barely intelligible, not to mention ungrammatical take on President Trump and a new ESPN podcast.
The number one job in America, the point of person, is someone who doesn't understand the people and really don't give a about the people.
But wait, there's more gripping insight. ESPN host Carrie Champion asked James and fellow NBA star Kevin Durant about what she described as Trump's racist comments.
I feel like our team as a country is not ran by a great coach. It's not even a surprise when he says something. It's not even a surprise. It's like laughable. It's like,
it's laughable,
and it's scary.
But it's also scary.
Right,
because
right.
I shouldn't be numb to your racist comments.
Right.
I shouldn't be numb to your behavior.
I'm numb to this commentary, like, must they run their mouths like that? Unfortunately, a lot of kids and some adults take these ignorant comments seriously. Look, there might be a cautionary lesson in LeBron for kids. This is what happens when you attempt to leave high school a year early to join the NBA. And it's always unwise to seek political advice from someone who gets paid $100 million a year to bounce a ball. Oh, and LeBron and Kevin, you're great players, but no one voted for you. Millions elected Trump to be their coach. So keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble.
All right. I guess that sets the stage for what we're going to discuss. She went in pretty hard on LeBron James and Kevin Durant. She was calling their comments unintelligible. She was basically alluding to the fact that the grammar that they used, she didn't feel was proper. She didn't feel that the commentary was necessary. And then she closes out that little segment by telling him to shut up and dribble. So with that in mind, what do you guys think about that? Let me pose the first question. Should LeBron James have a voice on the political scene?
I believe he should, just because of that he's a brand in himself, so to say, and he got millions of followers on social media, numbers of millions of followers on social media, right? So he has a voice, he has a platform to speak about it. I mean, politics and sports hasn't just started with LeBron James. You can go back to Muhammad Ali, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and all those guys back then, Brown, and all those. It's always been around, but now you have social media to even put it out even more. And him saying that, and all the people that's following him, he should speak out. They should speak out. That's what they're going for. What made me mad over just recently when they had the whole bubble for the NBA and they shut down because they were upset of the shooting or whatever. I was mad because they did stop playing for a couple of days just for the simple fact, if you stop playing, your voice would not be heard. As long as you are playing, you have that platform to speak on. So I was happy when they came back to speaking about it when they started playing again. Because if they shut down, then nobody's going to know the world's probably going to go back.
I want to come back to that point because I do have a position on that point. That's an interesting point, but I want to get Calvin's take on this. What do you think about LeBron James and his political voice?
I believe that I applaud LeBron James, and I believe he should continue to raise his voice and use his platform for this cause. Politics and sports is always intertwined together, back from, like you say, even Paul Robeson, the Jackie Robinsons, and those guys had a lot more to lose than these guys now. It was just recent, as of the 1980s, that major professional athletes were still taking second jobs, so they had a lot to lose. Most of these guys have millions of dollars, so they intertwine, and no one ever gives issue with NBA owners, NFL owners donating to these politicians. Robert Kraft, for example, for the New England Patriots owner, is a known giver to the Trump organization. Many of them, even BET, former owner of BET and former owner of the Charlotte Bobcats, Bob Johnson, recently acknowledged that he gives, and he's a Republican, and he's going to remain that way. So these professional owners are allowed to have that platform, but they seem like they want to put the athletes in their place. And like her comment, the very offensive about her comment about this was happens when you you graduate from high school, you don't go to college, and you let these idiots talk. Well, they don't say that, have that same rhetoric when you see tennis players jump from high school straight to the professionals, or these other leagues that's predominantly white. So it's very offensive, and I think race plays a part of it in a major way.
All right. That's a point well taken. Let's back up a minute, and Curtis made a point earlier. Tell me one more time what your point was. I gotta remember what you said.
About them being in the bubble.
Yeah, in the bubble. That's right. So I have an interesting take on that, because when the George Floyd incident took place, and then the police shooting of the young man in Wisconsin, when these things took place, if you remember, there were talks about boycotting brands that may have had some racist connotation to them. People were talking about just boycotts in general. And I kind of took the position when they were contemplating stopping basketball that there were some more pressing and important issues in our society than being entertained by a sport. And I get Curtis's point that the platform allows them the opportunity to use their voice to a wider audience. I guess my concern is that they can stop playing ball and still go out and protest peacefully, of course, and use their voice in the community without a game taking place. That's just one position that I have. I'm kind of open both ways. I think Calvin wants to chime in on that.
I'm with you 100%. The only issue is that there's a very few that have the cliche and bring home the $100 million every year in salary and endorsements who can afford to sit out. There's no secret. There's a lack of financial literacy among athletes.
That's what I was going to say, exactly.
So the guys at the top who can afford to hold out, it's the ones in the mid and lower level of the salary caps that can't, because another position is you're taking away those resources. They may be helping a small business in the black community, back in their community, or helping family members. So It's a touchy situation, but there was a lot of money on the line. So then you balance what's important now. What we stand for, which is right, or do we go for the money, the bag? Mm-hmm. So that's the decision. That's the impasse I believe a lot of the athletes in that bubble had to really grasp, because hey, just because you're making $1 million, we know that 50% of that is out. You don't even touch that.
Right.
So.
Right. We got like basketball is secondary, but like you say, it's their job. Like the ones who the 12 men that's at the end of the bench, they taking care of the whole family or part of the whole community. So like you say, 50% of that money you're not touching. The other 25% probably going to your family or whatever, and you got the other portion going to taxes. So you really not, when you get down to it, that $1 million is not really going as far as you think it would, unless you playing, unless you working. That's their job. So it breaks down to it. So I can't remember who it was, but one article I read, he played for the New Jersey Nets, and he was saying, it's like you were saying, it's easy for the guys who are making a $40 million contract like Chris Paul and all of them. They can afford to sit out because they done made their money and they still got these big contracts and all these endorsements deals. But he like, I don't have that, so I have to play to feed my family. He don't live in a mansion or nothing like that. He has a regular sized house. So this, like you say, it'll take situations, you got to find that balance. Mm-hmm. And the platform, when I got mad about the bubble platform, when they shut down, because you got to realize how many people around the world is watching this platform. And so everybody around the world watching, so you have that big platform to speak to everyone at once and see how to get your message across. I mean, it's good to get out in the community, but you also have that one specific platform where everybody's watching that one channel at one time, so you can speak on it.
Interesting. There are a lot of different ways we can look at this. We could probably debate all day on it and never come to a solid conclusion. But the reality is that I think that athletes, whether they're at the professional level, whether they're in a collegiate level, in some cases, even at a high school level, awareness is important for these athletes. They have to be informed. They have to recognize that they have a platform at whatever level of sports they're playing on, because as an athlete, people's eyes are on you. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, but we live in a society that thrives on entertainment. Mm-hmm. And so when someone is able to entertain us, they get our attention. And so it's important, I think, that we understand what is best to do with the attention that they receive.
Right. I agree with that. And one thing about the LeBron James of the world and the Dwayne Wades is they can have the ear to that politician to help make change, to help to have reform and help the communities. And that's why I think it's very important for those guys to stand for something. Now, they came to agreement not to leave the bubble, but to continue to play basketball. But now that the season is over with, I'm real interested to see where this goes now.
Right.
Do they keep going and pressing hard, or that was just a phase to get us through it for the moment?
Right.
That's the challenge we have as a community.
Right, and I was just reading yesterday, Chris Paul led a voters march yesterday in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to march to get them to the polls to vote registration, to vote and everything. So I do see that he's still trying to push that issue to where people are voting and making their voice being heard. But I'm like you, though. I want to see how many will actually continue on that path to do what he's doing and keep it going, or just.
And not just the athletes.
Yeah.
That's in our community.
Right.
Houston was the jump start of all this with the George Ford. So Minneapolis. I mean, where are we now in this? 3-4 months later, what direction are we going to go as society?
Right, because a lot of times the things are hot on the press when the media is providing coverage and everybody's excited about it. They have an opinion one way or the other, but it kind of fades off. Mm-hmm. One of the guys that I have a lot of respect for is Steven Jackson from our hometown of Port Arthur, who is on the front lines, doing what he does. He's out passing out necessities to families in Port Arthur. He's traveling. He's still fighting with the legal system over some of the cases that we've heard about. And he's not alone. I mean, I just saw in the news that Offset I don't know if he was married to Cardi B or still married to Cardi B, but he's something with Cardi B.
Yeah.
And, he was in the news recently making a push for voters to get to the polls, young voters, because he speaks to that generation. He has that generation's ear. And so coming from a guy like that, perhaps, it's meaningful to a certain demographic for him to say we need to get to the polls and vote. I also saw, and I'm going to let you guys chime in on this, another guy from the Golden Triangle area who's very successful, won NBA, I think 2 NBA championships, Kendrick Perkins. Perk and his wife just posted today that they went and voted for the first time. So,
Wow.
Here's another guy that has well-known. He's working with ESPN, I believe, now. We hear him all the time in the sports world, who is also crossing over and letting his political position be known to people.
And that's very important, Lavelle, because it's amazing. You may not go, but I go to the barbershop.
Folks, my DadCast Nation, he's giving a little dig here to my bald head and my gray hair, I'm sure. But my man Curtis over here is with me, so we're gonna let Calvin finish.
But seriously, and it's amazing. You go in the barbershop and these young guys are saying, "I'm not voting." Doesn't mean anything. You hear a lot of the guys in their 20s take that position, and us old heads will tell them to give them the reason and give them some history of why you should vote, So it takes the people they look up to, the Offsets, the Kendrick Perkins, the people closer to their age, to influence them, because after a certain time, the generational gap, like all youngsters, that's 20 years younger, you don't know anything. You old fuddy-duddy, y'all don't know what I'm talking about. But to have young people inspire them and galvanize them is very important. And I'm glad Perkins is doing that.
Yeah, like you say, kids don't really know. They be like, "Oh, my vote don't count for nothing." They got somebody else to pick up that vote. But your vote does count. You got to start, like you said earlier, the local level. Start at the local level. That's the ones who really elect people don't know how electoral vote works. They don't know how that stuff works. You got to elect the ones in the local level to get the president you want. But you got to, it's just like you say, come from people in the community to educate the younger people how to do it. And I've come across a few people before, like, "Oh, I ain't never voted before, but I'm voting now, though." I'm voting now. And just looking at the numbers, watching the news last night, that there's a double the amount of people who early voted compared to 4 years ago.
Right.
So the word is getting out there. They want to see a change. So we just see that change.
And my wife mentioned this to me today because we were just talking about that same thing. I saw a headline saying that early voting numbers are already double what it was in 2016. And she mentioned to me that she saw something, but we haven't fact-checked this. So let me just say that and as I preface this comment. But she saw something that said that 2016 was the lowest voter turnout in history or something like that. And so half of that, whoever was making that point, if that's a valid point, was saying, yeah, it's half of what it was, but 2016 was also a very low year. I'm saying that to say that there will always be detractors out there. There will always be people out there who will try to push down an effort. And so I believe we holding a discussion like this, and those that are out in the communities, even those that are listening that are in other countries, America is not the first, nor will it be the last country that has protests and has social issues to address and civic responsibilities. To some of our listeners, I was telling Curtis, that are in India and Russia, and we have some in the UK. We have some, I think I saw Australia on the list today. So they're all over the globe. There are issues of importance, and there are athletes all over the globe. There are entertainers all over the globe, and there are regular people like you and I who, when we all put our efforts together, we can hopefully get something done, something positive. But I've got to play the advocate role here, because I was talking with a lady recently who basically felt like Laura Ingraham. She felt like entertainers get paid to entertain, and that we shouldn't have to listen to political advice from people who are not in the political arena. And the NBA specifically, so you guys, don't throw darts at me. Mm-hmm. Those that are listening, hear me out before you make a decision or you come to a conclusion about what I'm saying. But as the interview, as the host of this interview, I've got to put some things out here to make us think. If other sports would do like the NBA was lined in Black Lives Matter during the bubble. Every time you turned on the TV to a game, you could see a logo of Black Lives Matter. You could see some type of inference to it. The other side of that argument is that if other races took a platform like that to promote white supremacy, to promote Asian supremacy when it comes to mathematics, for instance, anything like that, we would have a fit. So are we right in taking the opportunity to spotlight an issue like Black Lives Matter, or are we in reverse discrimination? Reverse racism?
I believe not, because we have historical facts within this country showing how Black lives has not mattered. Okay, it's out there. I mean, a big thing now that's coming to light. Another thing Chris Paul has done is make this movie or documentary about the Tulsa race riots. With that being said, I don't believe it's reverse discrimination because there's historical facts and undertones in this particular country that shows that black people have been lynched, still lynched today, mistreated yesterday, today, and tomorrow until something changes. You can change all the laws you want, and I'm not an advocate against that, but you can't change people's heart. Mm-hmm. And it's clear as day to me that black lives have not mattered in this country for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because if you look what sees on the news, all you're just seeing is us being killed. That's it. You don't really see much what's going on.
But the president recently said that white cops get killed all the time.
But he also didn't denounce white supremacy when they asked him that question in the debate either. So you gotta think about where that come from as well. But I also saw, the fact check me on this, in California, that the governor was also thinking about doing reparation for black folks in California. So y'all might want to fact check me there, but I saw the article. I can't remember where I saw it at. But if that's the case, at least they're showing some type of way to move forward. But it's not reversed at all, because that's all you see is just black people getting the worst end of it, and it's always been that way.
Now let me chime back in and give you my position for those that are listening I don't want you to misconstrue what I said. I'm putting this out there so that we can have the discussion about it, but I firmly believe that if black lives mattered equally as all other lives all along, we wouldn't have to have a movement to focus on Black Lives Matter. So I'm not against blue lives. I'm not against any other life. As an individual, as the host of this show, I think that all lives matter. But in particular, black lives have not been equaled to other lives. Right. And until there is equality and equity, then we have to focus on bringing up the lives that have been held down for so long. We just want an even playing field.
And you make sure even playing field. Just going back to when I first started at FedEx as a manager, as a dock manager. I got promoted when I was in Kansas, and I got promoted back down to Houston area in Webster. And I applied for another promotion after a couple years, and I didn't get it. They brought somebody else in of a white person, and what my boss at the time wanted me to do is to train my new boss. I said, why am I training my boss? Shouldn't he already know this? If y'all didn't want me to be in a position, why am I training him? First of all, I had more experience with him. I was with the company longer than him. But yet you brought him in for him to be my boss, but you want me to train my boss. And I'm like, I'm not training my boss. That's not right, because I'm already here when you already had me, but yet you bringing him in because that's your friend. You like him, and y'all the same color, you know. But I know how it go around here.
Wow. How many times have we heard that story? Right. Wow, that's familiar. One thing it struck me looking at the protests over the past 5 months or so is that truth is, and it was good to see other ethnic groups march with us, lockstep and white, Asian, Mexican, whatever. But you know, laws and things could be changed just like that. If those same people that march with us will go straight to their local politicians, march to their city halls, and demand change. You know, it's honorable to march with us, but tell you what, won't you go talk to your cousins that's in position in politics, or your friends, or your neighbors' friends that look like you, that's in those positions to make change? It can be changed just like that. I forget which city and in which state that they marched to the state house to demand to get reopened, and they got open like the next day. I forget which city. It doesn't ring a bell right now. Mm-hmm. But the point is if you really want to make change, you reach out to the people that look just like you that's in those positions, and things will get changed immediately. But instead, you march alone, you loot alone, along us, and most times you're causing the looting.
Yeah, it's not us.
You know, so I just personally think that things get changed if the people that want to decide to march along with us put their foot down and go demand change.
And I think one of the things that, you know, it's important is that individually we have to have a conviction about what we believe in and what lengths we are willing to go to for that belief. I've said this a couple times on the broadcast, but I have been a Dallas Cowboy fan since I was 12 years old.
I'm sorry.
Let hear the rest of this. I get you, you know.
You and half of Houston, Dallas Cowboy.
You know, I've been since Roger Staubach was quarterback. Never liked another team in my life. Hardly ever missed a game. Die-hard fan. My wife would tell you, I've had jerseys and all of the paraphernalia. As a matter of fact, this wall in front of you guys was lined with Dallas Cowboy paraphernalia. And when the George Floyd incident took place, I made a decision that I've never been a fan of Jerry Jones. I've always been a fan of the Cowboys. And I felt like Jerry Jones was running the Cowboys like a plantation owner. And like he treats the athletes as if they're property and not people. And I made up my mind during that moment that I hope continues and pushes true change, that I was not going to support anything that doesn't support what I believe. So I dropped the Cowboys. I have not watched the game. I turned the news off if they're talking about them. If it's on the radio, I change the channel. Mm-hmm. I don't want to hear anything about the Cowboys. As a matter of fact, I'm not even watching football. Even though the NFL has tried to make some amends on the Kaepernick issue, I just feel like it's a little too late, and that they don't deserve my attention right now.
I have those same sentiments about Jerry Jones. All right, me being a native Houstonian, I grew up as Oilers fan, so go figure. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna like football. I have no favorite teams. But as polarizing as Jerry Jones is, and as front and center, and really the voice and face of that franchise, and he's never met a mic that he doesn't like, right? The attention seeker he is. And when all this went down, I too said, "Where's Jerry Jones?"
Radio silent.
Silent, right? And I said, "That it is. That's." Now you see how owners really feel about their workers. Some disguise it better than others, right? Because they still have that same conversation amongst each other, all right, when they behind closed doors and at the country clubs, whatever. But he displayed that mentality you just described, and I was like, wow. And that was very eye-opening. Not surprised, but eye-opening for a attention seeker that he is, not to say anything that's going on.
And when you hear him talk about the Cowboys, he's always saying, my players, like he owns them.
My boys.
Like that's his property or whatever. It's just like when they first came out in the NFL, people started kneeling at the national anthem or whatever. He came out and said, my players will not be kneeling or they'll be reprimanded or whatever. And then, like you say, when it came about all of George Floyd murder, Breonna Taylor, he went silent. You ain't hear nothing from him. And everybody always was asking, where's Jerry Jones and all this? And he put a bold statement out later down the road that didn't really put him on one side or the other, just kind of play that line so nobody can really say nothing. And it just like, I've never been a Cowboys fan, but they played on the team I like. Like, for example, the whole thing, the way he treats Dak Prescott. Like, pay him, man. Pay him. The same thing he did Emmitt Smith. He didn't want to pay him until he had no choice but to pay him. But you were willing to pay Tony Romo all this money while he was hurt. So what's the difference? What's the difference? That's my only question.
Yeah, I just think that sports takes a back seat right now to the important issues we have in our society, and if the owners are not going to use their platform like players are doing in some cases, then they just don't deserve my support. And that's with products and brands, anything.
And what a lot of them are doing is they're cutting the check. Like the Philadelphia Eagles owner, let me donate $5 million, but I'm not going to say anything. A lot of them are giving money, but we need your voice. Your voice is more powerful than that money, because your voice can, like I said earlier, lead to change, getting that politician's ear, the same one you're donating to. So a lot of them are saying, okay, I'll write this check off to you, but I'm not going to say anything to jeopardize my fan base, put my bottom line in jeopardy.
Right. And that's the thing. A lot of times, players are the same way in some cases, that they don't want to jeopardize their bottom line, for the greater cause. Right. And that's a fine line to walk, because like you guys have mentioned, they do have families to feed, and they do have responsibilities to take care of, but they also, in my opinion, have been entrusted with a greater platform than the average person has. And I feel like if players would have said, we are not going to play until there is some systemic change would have happened quickly.
Yes.
Because they drive the economy of sports. Same thing with things like the blackout that was attempted to happen right after the George Floyd murder. There was a movement saying that black folks are not going to spend money on this particular day. And don't do anything. Don't buy gas, don't buy things from the convenience store, don't go to the grocery store, don't spend money on anything unless you do it with a black-owned business. My wife and I support black-owned businesses every week. We go to these restaurants and make sure that we patronize black-owned businesses. We're trying to help raise the bar so that there can be equity across the board. But when those efforts went out, there were a lot of people that just didn't participate, just didn't want to sacrifice whatever it was, buying a meal at a certain restaurant that they love going to that just happens to not be a black-owned restaurant. They just, and
it's proven it's worked. Look at what Martin Luther King Jr. Achieved with the Montgomery boycott.
Yeah.
I mean, so we've proven it worked. You hit the bottom line, you can make change.
Yeah.
It happened overnight. And I too, when that blackout, I don't remember the numbers, but they showed the effect that it did have on the economy. So we have to do a better job of supporting ourselves, taking our own, having ownership of our own responsibility within our community, and not look so much outwardly for help. Because a lot of things we can do on our own to help ourselves. If we come together, put our heads together, and support each other. I truly believe that. We can crawl ourselves out of this situation with the help of other people pushing the buttons to make things happen, behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I was reading, there's a group of black people that's in out near Atlanta, Georgia, where they bought like 100 acres to try to build their own city or whatever. That's right there. They're trying to build the community up, their own community up, have their own way of life. Right. Instead of relying on somebody else or somebody else's needs to help them out. And I like that. I commend them for that.
And let me say this to our listeners. This broadcast is not racist by any stretch of the imagination. I believe that what we're saying is necessary given the background information that got us to this point, giving the historical data that has not been in favor or been equal to all races. I believe that we have to take necessary steps as a race of people to bring ourselves to the position where we can be on the equal playing field. But I do want to say to our listeners that I'm not against anybody else that's of a different race. I just believe that we have to find equality and equity. I say the two because there's a difference between them. We don't just want to be equal, but there needs to be equity. It's kind of like in the school systems, you can't just give $100,000 to every school and say every school is going to be equal, even though you gave an equal amount to every school. Mm-hmm. Because some schools are already behind the curve when they get the 100,000.
Right.
So they need equity. They need maybe 120,000 to equal the 100,000 that another school gets. And it's the same thing with black people in business, and I say this all the time, and you guys, and those that are listening know, sometimes you try to patronize black-owned businesses and you do not get a good experience, unfortunately. Sometimes that does happen. I say to business owners all the time that don't cut corners, make sure the quality is there, don't drop your prices so low to try to attract people to come in that it ends up sacrificing your service level. I do understand that minority-owned businesses have a difficult time getting the same buying power that other majority businesses do. So they can't go and buy in bulk many times and get things at the lower prices that a large chain company would get. The reason, though, that they can't do it is because they don't have access to the same capital that the large chains has. But let's go further than that. The reason that they can't have access to the same amount of capital is because a lot of times we don't put ourselves in a position financially, from a credit standpoint, to be able to be equal to the ones that are getting those assets, that capital from those banks. Now, I do understand that sometimes the bank administration, that are the ones that are making those decisions, are not being fair when they make the decision on who they're going to give capital to. But we have a part in that as well. We have to position ourselves to be available to receive capital without we don't need excuses, is what I'm saying.
Let me allude to the point. I'm the same way. I love supporting black business, but I think we're hard on each other a little bit more. Because it's been many times I've gone to the Papados, the Papacitos, the Olive Gardens, you name it, non-black establishments, and receive horrible service. And guess what? Continue and go back. Why do we hold ourselves? I don't know if we want to go into this, segue into that, but I can bring up self-hate. I hate to say that, but it is. But we hard on ourselves. You know, we'll have a bad experience at one black establishment and be like, you know what, I'm not never going back, and talk so bad about it. But you go to you return back to these other people who don't really give a rat's, you know what, about you. So that's just my take. I've learned over the years, instead of giving them just one chance, go back, give them a second chance. They could have had a bad day.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them. You know, so I just encourage people, just, you know, give that black-owned business maybe 2 or 3 chances. Why not? We give the other ones.
I think we are hard on ourselves just because we expect more from ourselves. We expect better, but I'm with you on that. Like, I've had bad service at plenty of restaurants, but I went back to them, like you say. So, and in that aspect, like, we expect better quality service from ourselves, like this our people, so to say. So we expect more, better service than what we receive from you. Like, you say you're gonna be here at a certain time, or you open your business at a certain time, we expect that time to be open. And if you're not open, like, well, I'm not coming back. That's how people do it. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Or like,
Yeah.
this wasn't no good. This food wasn't no good. I ain't never come back here, and that's just being honest. And but you're right though. I think everybody's done it though. To be honest.
I think that it doesn't matter what restaurant I go to. If the service is bad, the service is bad. If the service is good, it's good. We have been to some places, and there was some things that were left to be desired. But we did say we will give another chance. We'll come back because we're making a concerted effort to patronize those businesses. I'm just saying that. As a business owner, I understand the difficulty in putting out a product or a service that is on par with competitors.
Yeah.
And when we go into business, we have to go in with the mindset that we're looking at the long haul, and we want to compete on a large level, on a higher level, not just getting our little piece of the pie and being happy with the little profit that we make. We're representing more than ourselves, and we have to have a stake in this business sector that gives us the opportunity to, open doors for other people.
What I've learned to do, we'll go out to eat at a black establishment. Let's say the service wasn't up to par. Getting a drink took 20 minutes or something like that. You know what I've learned to do over the years, if that's my first time going to an establishment? Ask for the manager. Just pull them aside. You know what? I like your place, but this where is lacking at. So a lot of people appreciate that. That's just starting up, because they may not see the flaws, what's going on. But they just starting out trying to get it, and they appreciate that. I come to see that they appreciate you just being honest with them. If they ask you how the service, don't tell them it was good if it wasn't.
Right.
Be honest with them. Hey.
And give them opportunity to improve.
Give them opportunity to improve.
Right.
And that's for any business. Like a couple months ago, I went to the Ford dealership to get my car service, and for some odd reason, just to get it started, get an oil change. Matter of fact, they forgot about my car. They forgot to where the point where I was there for about 3 hours, and they're like, "Oh, you're finished now." And I go out there like, "Where's my car?" They in the parking inside the gate and everything. So I get to it and look at it like, "Hey, nothing was done." So the point I'm going with is that they messed up a whole bunch, and I told them, how the surveys come out in the email or whatever, how was your service, blah, blah, blah. And I just was honest with them, like, I didn't like how it went. They left my car back there, the oil wasn't changed. And showing up to correct their mistake, they ended up giving me $150 cash back and three free oil changes after that. I said, okay, you're making up for your mistake. And saying all that, if business that start up, not saying they got to give $150, but give some kind of reward, like to give us the opportunity to make it back up to you. Like you say, you talk to the manager, give us the opportunity to make it back up to you. This is what we'll do for you. You got to give a gift card or something like that.
Right.
Just to get you back in to show that we have improved on our service to get a repeat customer out of it.
Right. So let me segue a little bit, lighten this up a little bit. I know our listeners are, we've gone pretty deep. But I did want to talk to you guys about another topic, kind of sports related, but let's just, have a little fun for a few minutes. I got my top 5 list right here. I got my stats to back up my top 5 list. I'm ready. I'm armed and dangerous, ready to give my information out. Now I'm going to go with mine, let you guys give yours. those that are listening, especially some of these sports fanatics that might be listening to the podcast, this is a DadCast, and it's a perspective on everything from A to Z. So as the host, I have an opinion on who my top 5 NBA players of all time are. So I'm going to put it like this. I'm thinking strategically, not just popularity. I'm picking my 5 strategically. So at point guard, I've got the glove, Gary Payton. Seattle Supersonics, 9-time first team all-defensive NBA. The only point guard in NBA history to be a 9-time first team defensive player. 16 points a game, 1 championship. That's my man running the point on my all-time team. Great defender, can probably at 6'4" can defend most any guard that he's going to be matched up with. I'm going to go with a 3-guard set. My second guard, my man, I'm going down with him. I don't care what the ship says. I'm going down with my man Kobe Bean Bryant. I got to put him in there. That's my man. One of my favorite, my second most favorite player of all time. 12-time all-defensive player. 9 of those on the first team, 3 of those on the second team. 24.99 points per game for his career average, which is 13th all-time, by the way. 5-time, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5-time NBA champion and MVP. And I'm not going to count the 2 MVPs he should have won that Steve Nash won, but hey, we'll talk about that at a later date. At my third position, I've got another guard. He is the GOAT in my opinion. Hands down, no one better. I'm going with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, of course, 9-time all-defensive player, 30.12 points per game for his career, which is, by the way, first all-time. 6-time champ, 6-time MVP, and let me just throw this in there, 6 for 6 in the championships. I know that's a big area of debate, but who can debate 100% in championship games? My small forward. I'm going to play a small forward on my top 5. And I'm coming in with my man from San Antonio, Tim Duncan. That's my man at small forward. He's a 15-time all-defensive player. 19 points a game, 2-time MVP, and a 2-time NBA champion. He can defend the 4 and the 5 unquestionably against anyone. The big fundamental. Feet movement, smooth, can defend, can score. You name it, he can do it. And he does it without fanfare. That's what I liked about Tim Duncan. So that's my man at the 4 spot. And at the 5, I got the captain. The one and only Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That's right. 11-time all-defensive player, 24.61 career average, 6-time MVP, and 6-time NBA champion. Holding it down in the middle, can block shots, can defend. No one can stop the skyhook, the greatest one move in the history of the game. They can't do anything with him. I'm like Stephen A. Smith. You can't stop Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Okay.
That's my top 5. Hey, let me give you this right quick for thought. My honorable mention, I got Magic at number 6. I got Larry Bird at number 7. I got to throw him in there because Larry Bird was a beast.
Boy.
He was a beast. And I go ahead and I put LeBron in there at number 8. Yeah, I dropped him in at number 8. I'm struggling on that 4 out of 10, 40% in the finals. That's hurting me right there. That's hurting me though. It's not enough to bring somebody to the dance. You got to carry him over the threshold, brother. So that's me, 40%. But I put him in there at number 8. Number 9, I went with my man. I didn't like him when he played, but I respect his game, Karl Malone. Number 2 all-time in scoring. Got to the big dance, couldn't carry him over the threshold. So I take a few points off of that, but I did like the way the mailman delivered during his career. And number 10, I got to go with Houston's own 5-slammer jammer, Hakeem Olajuwon. His footwork was amazing. He made Kobe what he is. Everybody says Kobe, took a lot of Michael Jordan's moves and all this stuff, but he worked with Hakeem to get that footwork down so that he could get those 81 points, number 2 all time behind my man Wilt Chamberlain. So I will say that Hakeem Olajuwon had an impact on Kobe's game, not to mention the other young brothers he's been working with. That's it. I'm telling you, my 5 is that you can't beat him. You can't beat him.
Being my background is more of a defense person. I don't really have favorite players. I can build a team. How about that? A championship.
Let me see what you got. Curtis, by the way, is the youngest of us in this room right now. So let's see what Curtis is gonna bring to the table.
I got a little old school up in there now. But I'm a inside out player. So I got to start the post. I'm gonna go with Shaq, the most dominant player ever to play that position. That center is Shaq. You couldn't stop that man.
Most dominant ever, huh?
He's most dominant. You could not stop him. When he got that ball, you had to respect that power move.
And then put him at the line, and what he's gonna do? Brick! Go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off, brother.
He was in one finals. He was 1 year the MVP of the league, and then the MVP of the finals. Now, come on now. And so now I'm going out to the power forward, Dennis Rodman. Can't deny his defense or rebounding. I'm more of a defensive specialist. I like defense. And as a matter of fact, the way he defended Shaq frustrated Shaq to the point to where you got to respect that man's game, and that's why Dennis Rodman's in the Hall of Fame. Now, the small forward is for the younger generation. I got LeBron James. Because he's a facilitator. He can do pretty much everything. He facilitates. I know you criticize about that 40% in the final, but them teams that he carried to the finals, you got to respect what he did. He averaged a triple-double in one of those finals as well. And another one, he almost averaged another triple-double. So you got to respect what that man do. He almost averaged a triple-double this year in the finals. So you got to respect that game. And for the 2 guard, I got Jordan. You gotta have that killer. That closer for you. Just give him the ball and get out the way. Let him do what he do. You gotta have it. And my point guard is Magic Johnson. So I got kind of a big lineup. That's how, cause you put those guards out there. Curry not shooting open them guards like that. Curry just can't do it. That defense, just like back in the 90s when the Bulls had that 3-headed monster with Harper up there, Jordan and Pippen. That's 6'6" and higher. You can't get around them. And that's what made them so dominant. And then you had also Rodman in that down there too. Frustrating Shaq. Frustrating all the post plays. And that's what he do. So I'm more of a defensive person. A defensive specialist. That's what my thing is. So I can see my team going to the finals and do some things with them.
Well, we're going to give the young gun his little time right here. But, we can debate this for quite a while. But, hey, we don't respect.
Kobe is my 6th man as well, too.
Number 6? Oh, my.
Let me bring some intelligence to the conversation
on this.
I'm a football background, but I love me some basketball, too. I'm going to tell you, how could you not start your team off at point guard with the Magic Man? Magic Johnson, 6'9".
My top 5.
Come on, man. Throw Alice from half court. Man, the first MJ, okay, before MJ. That's my point guard.
It's showtime.
Like you, I'm taking 3 guards.
Okay.
List them how you want. I got Magic. I'm taking Kobe, Janet Bean Bryant, and I'm taking your airness, Michael Jordan. You talking about a 3-headed monster?
It's not the ball. The ball don't get moved enough.
Shoot. Who done move the ball?
Kobe shot a lot and Jordan shot a lot, though.
It don't matter. When you got Magic facilitating, Magic is the number one leader in all of sports, period, in history. Name me a better leader than Magic Johnson, okay? I got to throw LeBron in. And I'm a late bloomer on LeBron. I'm more of an old school, but over the past 3-4 years, man, I've learned to respect this guy's game. I cannot put LeBron in. I think the most disrespected person on anybody's list is Kobe Bryant. I mean, how can this dude just be second fiddle, not on anybody's first team? So I have Magic, MJ, Kobe, LeBron, and I'm taking Hakeem the Dream, Olajuwon, for my center. Take it outside, take it inside. Don't look at the Dream back in he was 90, 94, 95. Look at Dream when he was 88. The most athletic big man in the game. Could run like a deer, led the league in block shots, seemed like every year. He's a walking double-double. pull down 12 to 15 rebounds a year. All right, so that's my 5. My honorable mention, I'm going with the second most disrespected point guard ever in Isaiah Thomas. People forget how deadly that boy was. Isaiah Thomas, Detroit Pistons, was cold-blooded, man. He was all those Kyrie before Kyrie, right? You talking about handles, can't shoot, can't get to the goal at 6'1". He was cold-blooded. Honorable mention, I'm going with KD, Kevin Durant. 6'10", 7'6" wingspan, can shoot from anywhere. Forgot about KD.
I did.
KD now, come on now. And I'm going with the silent man in San Antonio, Tim Duncan. I got to put him in there. Then I'm putting the coldest boy to ever play for Boston, Larry Bird. Cold-blooded. I got Larry Bird there. Then I'm ending it with the general, the captain, Jabbar.
Interesting that none of us put Bill Russell on the list.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the debates I've had. If we're talking about rings, he should be the GOAT of all time. He should be great of all time.
Back then they wouldn't. I mean,
that's not the point, though.
Yeah.
A lot of people bring up the rings that...
That's like saying the Yankees have won 20 chips back then, but who were they playing? I mean...
Well, right, though. But that's like people bring up LeBron won 4 rings, right? He got 4 rings. But Bill Russell has 10 rings. And Michael Jordan has 6. So you got to think about it. We're going by rings.
The
or we're going
league wasn't as integrated back when Bill Russell was playing
right.
it is now. I mean, Red Auerbach had to pick up, he had the cream of the crop.
Okay, let me ask y'all this.
There wasn't no draft.
This is another question that was proposed to me. Is the league easier now or easier back then to get a ring?
I think right now, in my opinion, it's easier now.
Why is it easier now? Because you got superstars teaming up with each other. Not like it was back then.
Yeah, but you also have touch fouls, and I think that's changed the game.
Yeah.
When Jordan, Bird, Magic, Isaiah, even before then, ABA, when they were playing the game, people like the Detroit Pistons, what's the guy's name with Detroit? Bill Laimbeer.
Yeah.
Laimbeer and these guys, Robin, when he was there, they could foul the mess out of somebody, which was really what morphed Jordan's game into the next level, is that he knew he had to go into the weight room and bulk up to be able to take those hits that he was getting. So I think it's easier now because you have a game that's played from the 3-point line as opposed to a game that's played down in the paint. Centers ran the game for the most part. It was an inside-out game in the 70s, 80s, maybe into the 90s a little bit. Then all of a sudden you start having these phenoms like Kevin Durant that could come into the league, Dirk Nowitzki, these guys that could stretch the court, shoot 3-pointers at 7 foot tall. And they moved away, in my opinion, from that big man on the inside that really was the main staple of a team. But I still think there's something to be said about, having a solid big man. So I think it's easier now. I think it's easier because, for one thing, the hand check, like you just alluded to. I mean, can you imagine Jordan not getting hand check?
That's
I mean, he would score 45 a game, easy. You think Curry would be himself if he had guys like the glove checking him? Imagine if Curry had the glove and guys like Mookie Blaylock and some of those other point guards back in the day who would just hem you up. A guy that raced all around. I mean, come on, man. Guys like Dominique Wilkins would be considered one of the greatest ever if he played today. I mean, you couldn't check guys like that.
And I referee high school basketball games at AAU tournaments. And we call the captains to the circle at the beginning of the game. We let them know, I say, you do this, you pull away from with your hand check, it's not a foul. But you keep it on there, and then we're gonna call it a foul. Cause I'm still kind of, I'm younger than y'all, but I'm still at an old school era. Like, I play physical. When I played ball, I played physical. Cause that's how I was brought up with my older cousins and stuff like that. So I'm like, I'll let you play a little bit. That's just me. Not no little ticky-tack foul. I'm like, come on, we're gonna keep this game moving. I'm like, you gotta get tough. Which is another reason I can already hear what's happening through the airways when I say this. But it's another reason I can't put LeBron in my top 5 because my man complains too much.
even saying after the championship, I need my respect. The Lakers need their respect. I'm getting fouled. Man, Jordan never. Bird never. Magic never. All these guys we listen, they never would complain. What
Magic was the biggest whiner.
Yeah, but what did he do though?
He showed up. But Magic was a run to the referee, beg for a foul, that's my guy. And Jordan, what did one complaint people have? You can't even touch Jordan. The referee is blowing the whistle. So superstars going to get those calls.
Jordan always got the call.
I think with LeBron is because he's so big and fast and stronger than everybody else. To see a big guy like that complaining is a little more biased. Like, man, you can just run through guys. Stop complaining so much, LeBron. But those other guys that complain, they get a pass. It's just that LeBron is bigger, stronger, and faster.
I'm giving Jordan the pass because he's 6 for 6 in the finals, bro.
That's the same thing with Shaquille O'Neal, though. Shaquille O'Neal, they didn't call a lot of stuff for him because he was so big and much bigger than everybody, so he got beat up a lot of time. And I know that's frustrating to him. Like when he was at LSU before he went to the league, his coach Dale Brown, Dale Brown told him, you might as well just go get paid for getting beat up. That's why he left school early, because he said he actually wanted to stay in college, but Dale Brown told him to go ahead and get paid for getting beat up. Because you got to think about it, you that much bigger than somebody, referees are like, oh, he can take it, let him go. Let it go. So you got to think about that. And like he said, Jordan get them calls. It's a Jordan call, the Jordan effect. You got to think about that.
LeBron it's like everything. Then the flops, and they catch him on camera flopping.
Everybody in the NBA now, though. Everybody.
Not everybody.
He's a little drama king now. We know that.
He can be. But I seen everybody in the league cry about it. Cause I was like watching the bubble, like, and now they don't have no really crowd at the game. You can hear what they complain about. Like everybody complains about every single call that they don't foul. Like you look at it, you are fouling him, literally.
You think they're more mentally tougher back then?
I think that because Rutgers Park, for instance, made a lot of NBA players legends at Rutgers Park. Yeah. If we come right here into Houston, there are a lot of ballparks here in the city that made, where the Phi Slamma Jamma were out in the community playing some pickup games right here in Houston when they were, when Hakeem and those guys, Drexler and all those guys were here in the area.
Fundy.
Yeah, and so, a pickup game when you're calling your own fouls, it used to be, in my day, if you ain't draw no blood, it's not a foul, bro.
Right.
So, it's just one of those things where I think the NBA has morphed into a less physical game. It opens the way for more entertainment, like the Steph Curry kind of entertainment, just dribble, shoot, dribble, shoot.
Yeah.
We didn't throw my man Reggie Miller in there, deadly from the three-point line, and the tenacity is this wiry little young guy that came into the league should not have did what he did in the league.
Right.
Physically, he was not the kind of guy that should have made the impact that he made, but because he had the tenacity, the mindset that he would go after anyone, including Jordan. He did not see Jordan as the god of basketball. He saw Jordan as an enemy.
And that's something how you see the clips today. Reggie Miller didn't even want to talk about Jordan. It still affect guys later, like, this is the guy who stopped me from getting my chip.
Yeah.
Karl Malone the same way. I saw an interview when that documentary came out earlier this summer. Karl Malone, they asked about Jordan. He was like, what about him?
Yeah.
Those guys still that chip, like
it's like you say, it's a different NBA because even though they are opponents of a different team, they all work out together, they vacation together, they hang out together. Like back in the day, it wasn't none of that. You on your own. You figure out how to beat me.
Jordan barely got along with his own teammates.
I don't know if y'all watched the 10-point series on the Chicago Bulls, but I didn't like those practices that Jordan had with the players. I'm ready to fight Jordan every single day, but it got the best out of him though. But yeah, I don't know how they made it through practice. Him talking down, calling people out in practice every day, fighting Steve Kerr in practice. So yeah, it's a difference.
Kobe was the same way. Very difficult to practice with. Very difficult to be a teammate with. In his later years, he softened up a little bit and became a little more personable. But they were going out to those championships. That's right.
That edge that is successful where they are. Just that edge that I need something to tick me off to get me going.
Some of the guys that I could not stand, like John Stockton.
Yeah,
you still had to respect that he would go after anybody. Sometimes he had some dirty picks, on that pick and roll with Karl Malone.
We know definitely in Houston how dirty Stockton is. Trust me, we know that.
But he was still, you got to respect the fact that he didn't back down, even being undersized in some cases. He still went after people. It's that different mentality now.
And that's how I look at Bird. I wasn't a Boston. I was an LA Lakers guy.
Oh yeah, all the way.
I didn't like Boston for the reasons that's well documented. But it took decades later, for me to appreciate how cold-blooded that boy can play. He was good, man.
Yeah.
He can get after you. He didn't take no shortcuts. He worked hard and he played hard and he was good.
Right. Well, hey, man, we've talked about a lot of different things. I appreciate you guys' time. We hit the important topics today when it comes to politics. Everybody knows the election is coming up 5 days from the date of this recording. By the time it comes out, it'll be 4 days away. We have some work to do still. After the election is over, we're still going to have a divided country regardless of who wins. And so we have to be conduits, in my opinion, out in the community, out in our inner circle, to draw people together and be less divisive. We still need to support our own. We definitely need to promote our own agendas, push our own issues. But at the end of the day, we got to find a way to get along with people across the board, just like they need to get along across the aisle over on the Hill, Capitol Hill that is. And so I'm hoping that we can just find a way to do things positively, change our world for the better. I'm right on my top 5. That's something I'm gonna go ahead and say that I'm right on my top 5. My top 5 would beat your top 5 any day of the week.
I doubt it, man. We talking about what? 20 chips on my team, man.
Yeah, well, my 5, 1-on-1 can't be stopped. 5-on-5 can't be stopped. My man, the glove will shut him down.
Dream was the only one of 3 players to ever block the skyhook.
Yeah.
Dream, Will Chamberlain, and Nate Thurman, or the 3
So
players.
I'm gonna take those statistics. if it's only 3 people to block the skyhook, I'm gonna take that chance every day of the week. That move is unstoppable. Hey, but I appreciate you guys, man. Really, I thank you for taking the time to talk to me and to our listeners about this. There's a lot more we could discuss. We could go on and on and on about politics. We could definitely go on and on about debating our position in sports. But I want to encourage everyone out there to find you some people that you can talk with, have discussions with about tough subjects, because that's the way we move forward. We've got to put ourselves in a position where we hold the discussion and we're not afraid to be honest. And it doesn't mean we have to agree, but we do need to have the discussion, have dialogue about it. I want to thank everybody for listening, and as I always say, blessings and peace. I'm out.